Right then, welcome back everyone. Today, I'm talking about one of my favourite characters of all time, the Joker. The Joker is without a doubt DC's most iconic villain, and arguably, alongside one masked, heavy-breathing individual, the most iconic villain in all of fiction. The Joker first appeared in the original Batman #1 comic in 1940. Since then, there have been dozens of on-screen adaptations of the character across all forms of media, with some great, some not so great, and some you may never have heard of. And so in this video, I'm going to break down the 10 best known portrayals of the character and give you my absolutely 100% unbiased ranking.
So that was a f***ing lie.
Now I've decided to focus mostly on the live action portrayals of the character, so you'll probably notice some pretty glaring omissions in this list, such as Troy Baker and John DiMaggio. I know, this might upset some people, and if you are one of those people, kindly just leave a comment and please don't hurt my family. Now on this channel, we don't mess about, okay? This is a professional video making establishment. And so to demonstrate that, I'll be ranking each portrayal in a tier list.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
But anyways, that's enough of me yapping, and so without further ado, let's get into it. The very first live-action portrayal of the Joker was by Cesar Romero in the 1966 film Batman the Movie, which also starred Adam West as Batman. As you'd expect from a Batman film from the 60s, this film is camp as all hell, with the questionably skin-tight costumes to the ridiculous bat-themed items like the shark-repellent bat spray, and that line delivery that only Adam West can do. I mean, it's just brilliant. The film is from back when Batman was just pure fun. No serious scenes, no actual threat, no mentally disturbed kid traumatized by the death of his parents. Just pure nonsense. I can't quite believe the actors managed to keep a straight face while filming. I mean, the part where Batman describes how the platypus bravely gave its life to block the torpedo is actually hilarious. Now, as nice as it would be to reminisce about this film all day, I do need to actually talk about the Joker, and unfortunately, there really isn't a lot to talk about here. He's just sort of there, really. He doesn't do or say anything of note, he just laughs at a few things and that's it. I know this film isn't meant to be some incredibly profound character study, but still, from a Joker standpoint, it's very meh. I found it particularly funny how Cesar Romero just straight up refused to shave his moustache, and so you can see it poking through his face paint the whole film. And so, I'm afraid, we're starting off with F tier. We're taking a very large step up with the next film, Tim Burton's Batman, starring Michael Keaton and Jack Nicholson as the Joker. Now this film is awesome. The world and atmosphere that Burton creates is just perfect for Gotham in my opinion. The film strikes that perfect balance between fantasy and realism. It doesn't take itself too seriously, and so can get away with some sillier, unrealistic parts, but still has enough maturity to make you actually invested in the film. It has some truly iconic scenes, like when Nicholson wakes up in the surgeon's chair asking for the mirror that was parodied by The Simpsons. Or when Nicholson plays chicken with the Batwing, very reminiscent of another film that I'll go on to mention later in this video. The Danny Elfman score is just phenomenal. It's one of those rare occasions I will actually sit and watch the credits of a film just so I can listen to it. It gets stuck in my head for days and just takes me back to playing Lego Batman 2 as a kid. 10 out of 10 game by the way. And lastly, Batman not being able to turn his head will never not be funny. In this film, the Joker is initially known as Jack Napier, a mob enforcer that's clearly a few sandwiches short of a picnic, but is seemingly holding it together for the time being. That is, until he has an altercation with Batman, where he does the Joker origin story classic and falls into a vat of chemicals, turning him into the Joker as we know him. Now I know this isn't groundbreaking writing, but personally I like seeing a bit of backstory for my villains. From this point, Jack completely loses grip of his sanity and descends into madness as he terrorizes Gotham. Now this film is where we finally get to see the Joker as the homicidal maniac that we know and love. He's not just a bloke dressed up with face paint anymore, he poses a genuine threat and has true malicious intent. Jack Nicholson's performance is just brilliant. If you were making a Batman film at the time, who else could you have cast but Jack Nicholson? He's just perfect for the role. My only complaint, and it's very minor, is I didn't like his permanently stitched smile. I know that's probably an unpopular opinion, but what can I say? Apart from that, it's overall a brilliant portrayal, and so I have to go A tier. No one can argue that this series is brilliant. I will be honest though, I haven't seen them all, but the ones I have seen I really enjoyed. This series of course stars the legendary Kevin Conroy, the best to ever do it with regards to voicing Batman, and also Mark Hamill as the Joker. There are so many excellent episodes in this series, with a huge cast of characters and a great variety of stories, with my personal favourite being The Man Who Killed Batman. Now in terms of the Joker, for me, Mark Hamill is and will always be the voice of the Joker. No one can do it better than him. In this series, despite it being a children's show, we still get to see the insane, maniacal Joker that we expect to see, which just speaks to the quality of the writing. You still get the perfect sense of the character despite not necessarily seeing everything. I also love the animation style. I think it looks so good and still stands up to this day. Now in terms of ranking this Joker in comparison to other portrayals, I do think we've seen better. I know there are limitations given the technology at the time and the intended audience, and I do think what they achieved is remarkable, but still, I'm gonna have to go B tier. Heath Ledger's performance is and will always be the best portrayal of the Joker. I will simply not hear anything else. He is the reason playing the Joker has the reputation that it does, and why so many actors are too scared to take on the role. The Dark Knight is that one film for me that completely altered my brain chemistry, and it's my absolute favourite film of all time. For all your sakes, I'm going to attempt to limit myself to just that with regards to the film in general, because otherwise we'll be here all day. I'm going to try and talk about just the Joker, which to be fair, might not be any quicker. Anyway, let's just start at the start. I dare you to name a better character introduction than that first heist scene. I guarantee you can't, it's just unbeatable. Now what I love about this Joker is that he has no motive. He seemingly just rolls into Gotham one day and decides to start causing chaos purely for the fun of it. But he's not just some lunatic though, he's calculated and manipulating, and he knows exactly what he's doing and what the effect of his actions will be. I also really like his look. I think the suit and the decision to go with paint rather than chemical burns for his white face were all just perfect. Similarly to what I mentioned in the intro, I also love how every one of Joker's iconic, you wanna know how I got these scars stories change every time. And finally, the story with Harvey Dent becoming Two-Face and his whole character arc is just mwah, chef's kiss. Moving on to Heath Ledger's performance, I mean, what can I say that hasn't already been said? It's just astounding. The stories from his fellow cast members of Heath on set are actually terrifying. Supposedly, he'd never break character and just be constantly walking backward and forward muttering to himself. He also reportedly locked himself in a hotel room for a month, just reading comics and experimenting with voices and laughs to prepare himself for the role. It's well known Heath liked to really get into the mind of the characters he was playing, but in this case he took it to the next level. He said himself playing the Joker was physically and mentally draining, and it severely affected his sleep. I love everything about this performance and I will never tire of watching it. I know I've just been massively meat riding Christopher Nolan for the past however many minutes, and it's probably been an excruciating watch, but I don't care. Obviously, this is S tier. We're moving over to video games now, and to the best Batman games of all time, the Batman Arkham series. I loved playing these games as a kid, and I still do to this day. For anyone that cares, here's my ranking of all 4 games. Now I know Arkham Knight at 1 is an unpopular choice, but I think it's brilliant. It's one of my favourite games ever, and the fact that it still looks better than 90% of open world games coming out today is pretty crazy for an almost 9-year-old game. The Joker is the main antagonist across all 4 games and is once again voiced by Mark Hamill. We get to see his entire evolution across the games, from his beginnings in Arkham Origins to his death and eventual cremation in City and Night. Now these games focus much more on the psychological side of Joker's character and how he can burrow into your mind and manipulate you, which personally I love. This is shown literally in Arkham Knight, as even though the Joker is dead, he's still constantly just there with you, living in Batman's head, taunting and mocking him. I also think this is the best Joker design we've ever seen. I love how over-exaggerated everything is about him, like his incredibly pointed chin and a huge yellow smile, and it just works so well. However, none of it would work at all if it wasn't for Mark Hamill. His voice work is just so brilliant, it could not be more perfect for the character. You can't quite believe it's even him doing the voice, it's so far removed from his regular speaking voice, it's crazy. I know this is probably down to nostalgia bias, but I have to give this S tier. The Dark Knight Returns is a 2-part animated film, set many years later than your typical Batman story. In this universe, Batman has not been seen in Gotham for 10 years, and Bruce Wayne is now 55 years old. However, a new criminal gang called the Mutants start terrorising the city, and so Bruce is forced to become Batman once again. Now you'd be forgiven for thinking that Bruce hadn't spent a day out of action when you first see him, because my god, the dude is enormous. He looks as if he's about 6 foot wide, let alone tall. Like bro is literally built like Mr. Incredible. But anyways, I'm getting off topic. I have to say, I think this is my favourite animated Batman film there is. The amount they squeeze into 2.5 hours is insane. Like, this is how the plot is laid out. We literally get 3 full stories, plus some other sub-stories, and they're all brilliant. But as we know, we're here to talk about the Joker, and so I'm going to do exactly that. When we first see the Joker in this film, he's catatonic, and has been, coincidentally, for 10 years. However, once Batman returns to Gotham, miraculously the Joker also comes out of his coma. This symbiotic relationship between the two characters is just so fascinating. There's actually a lot of discussion in this film about how Batman creates his own villains, that how him running about Gotham as Batman incites equally disturbed people to follow suit, so to speak. And in the case of the Joker, that is entirely true. Batman is Joker's entire reason for existence, and he only does what he does so Batman can come after him and stop him, and then they can do it all over again, just like a game. Moving on to this particular portrayal of Joker, I think this is the most bloodthirsty and outright evil version of the character I've seen. I won't spoil what happens, but the first time I watched this film, I was in shock. I genuinely couldn't believe my eyes. Years after watching this film, these scenes are the ones that I remember. Michael Emerson does a brilliant job voicing him too. He goes for a slightly more subdued style, where he isn't just constantly laughing at everything, it just makes him feel much more menacing. Now I only have one major complaint, and that's with the story. Why would you let a mass murdering sociopathic clown who's just come out of a coma onto a talk show with a huge live audience without any sort of guards or restraints or anything? I get the psychiatrist was trying to make out he was well and everything, and that Batman was the real villain, but come on, surely he'd still be a bit more cautious. I also wish we could have seen a bit more of him in this film, but that's just me being selfish. And so overall, I'm gonna go A tier. Alright, I'll come clean. I have not watched all 100 episodes of Gotham. In fact, I haven't even watched one. I have watched lots of clips on YouTube and done some research, but I still don't know loads about the series, so I can't really pass much judgment. I have to say though, from what I've seen, it does actually look decent, so if anyone has seen it and could recommend it, let me know in the comments. But anyways, Gotham is basically a prequel / origin story series for all of the main characters in the Batman universe. Now from what I understand, there isn't actually an explicit Joker character, but instead there are these two twins, Jerome and Jeremiah Valeska, who have the different characteristics of the Joker shared between them. Jerome is the psychotic, chaotic murderer, and Jeremiah is the calculating, manipulating psychopath that is also obsessed with Bruce Wayne. However, in the final episode of the show, we at last get to see Jeremiah as the Joker as we know him. I don't know what happened to Jerome, but oh well. Both twins are played by Cal Kestis from Star Wars Jedi Survivor. I don't really know how they managed to get him to come into Earth and do a TV show, but... Now usually this whole same actor playing two twins gimmick doesn't work for me. I can never see past the fact they're just the same person. However here, I don't mind it. I think because the two characters were so vastly different, and from the scenes that I watched they weren't together that often, and so it helped maintain immersion. I also think Cameron Monaghan nailed the performance. He gave me Mark Hamill vibes with his line delivery and sort of just seemed to really get the character, which actually surprised me given the fairly negative reviews I'd seen. I think people tend to dismiss TV shows simply because they're TV shows, which is a real shame. Had this have been a feature film, I think we'd have seen a lot more praise for Monaghan. And in terms of the design of the character, this I like, this I don't like, and this I like a lot. And so overall, given my limited knowledge, I'm gonna go B tier. What can we say about this one? I've said plenty of times in previous videos about how good the DCEU could have been, but how shit it really was. How can you release 4 films in 1 year and every one of them be a flop? And no one got shafted more than this than Jared Leto. Leto's Joker should have first appeared in Batman vs Superman, but actually first appeared on screen in the 2016 Suicide Squad film. He was also referenced in the Birds of Prey prologue and was also shown in a flashback from the Suicide Squad film, but that's about it. The overriding theme here is that his parts were always cut short. I don't know why, but for some reason he just got next to no screen time every time. We do get to see a bit more of him in the unused footage from the Suicide Squad in the extended cut, and his much larger role in Zack Snyder's Justice League. And I have to say, I actually feel really bad for him because I genuinely liked what he was trying to do with the character. He sort of went for like a more of a mob boss, crime lord sort of vibe, but was also insane, and I was down for it, I can't lie. I wasn't as keen on his design though. I thought his grills kind of looked stupid, and his hair was just too green. I don't know how else to explain it. I think if he was given proper screen time to be able to explore his character fully, it would have been a different story. But going off purely what we were actually given, he's getting C tier. Next up is Joker, the Oscar-winning 2019 film starring Joaquin Phoenix. This film is yet another take on the Joker origin story, but this one is much more grounded in reality than the usual chemical vat shenanigans. In this film, the Joker is firstly known as Arthur Fleck, a failed stand-up comedian and a clown for hire. It's immediately clear that Arthur has some sort of mental illness and a very tenuous grip on reality. He is bullied, ridiculed and marginalised continuously, and this causes his descent into darkness and insanity, and eventually him becoming the Joker. Now I find this take on Joker's origin really interesting. It's got nothing to do with Batman, which I thought was really refreshing. What happens to Arthur is not something that you'd only find in a comic book, but it's something that could happen to anyone. And I think that's what makes this film brilliant, because by the end of the film you find yourself sympathising with Arthur, which is frankly absurd, given that he just unalived a dozen people moments ago. Moving on to the performance, I don't care this is a film bro film to like, Joaquin Phoenix is phenomenal here and absolutely deserved the Oscar. His body transformation alone was incredible. He lost 23.5 kilos or 52 pounds for the role, which is just nuts. One other thing I really liked about the film was the inspiration it drew from one of my favourite Scorsese films, The King of Comedy, starring Robert De Niro. That film is basically the Joker if the Joker was PG, and I think the casting of De Niro as Murray in this film was a nod to that film. But anyways, as for the ranking, the only reason I'm not giving this film S tier is because I simply don't like this portrayal as much as the ones currently in S tier. Therefore, Joker gets A tier. Now I know what you're thinking. We literally get about 30 seconds of the Joker at the end of the Batman. How can you give that a rank? Well, here's what I'm thinking. Shut up!
Ooh, you're hard.
No, but you're right. As of now, we've got very little to go off for Barry Keoghan's Joker. I like the laugh, and I like the scarred up face. These are all good signs. And also, since watching The Killing of a Sacred Deer, I'm terrified of Barry Keoghan, so again, good sign. But realistically, I can't rate him properly, so we'll just go smack bang in the middle with C tier. Next up, we've got Rocksteady's newest game, Suicide Squad Kill the Justice League. Now right off the bat, no pun intended, I don't think anyone had very high hopes for this game once they mentioned it was going to be a live service game. To go from the heights of the Arkham games to a game like this hurts my soul. And now 8 months later, I think we can all agree that we were right to be apprehensive, because holy shit, this game is appalling. I actually cannot believe they just sat Batman down on a bench and just shot him and that was it. I genuinely thought that Rocksteady were going to come out with a statement like, just kidding, that game was a joke, here's the real one. But no, this is what they actually came up with and thought, yep, that's the one. It's actually a disgrace. But we're ranking Jokers in this video, so let's go back to him. Now this game is set in the Arkhamverse, but as we know, original Arkham Joker is dead in this universe, and so this Joker is from an Elseworld, which is basically another universe, so that's an immediate red flag from me. Also, his design has nothing on the original Arkham Joker. He sort of looks like Austin Butler cosplaying the Joker, does anyone agree? The gameplay itself is fine, and his traversal is cool, but realistically, this game is fully cursed and is never recovering. Easiest F tier of my life. Five years. That is what I waited 5 years for. No, I'm sorry, there is no chance that is the sequel to Joker. No way! Why did they do this? I'd seen the reviews, I'd seen the early screening reports, I knew it was going to be a musical, but still, despite all of that, I had some hope that this film would be decent. But no, it was shit. Oh my god, it was shit. Where do I even start? My biggest problem with it actually wasn't the fact that it was a musical. Yes, I wish I hadn't have done it. Yes, I was getting really sick of the songs by the end. And yes, I think breaking into song in the middle of important dialogue completely breaks immersion and removes all the weight of what they're actually saying. But you have to give some respect to the producers for trying something a bit different. And at points I did think the songs actually worked decently. My main problem with the film is that nothing happened. Typically the point of a sequel is to develop the story or the characters set out in the first film. But in this, there's just nothing. No new information, no development, no story whatsoever. All it is an incredibly drawn out courtroom sequence that doesn't even conclude in any meaningful way. We do get the introduction of Harley Quinn, played by Lady Gaga, but she's just wasted. She just sits there and sings a couple of songs with him and that's it. Medically, a folie à deux is a condition where one person takes on the psychosis and delusion of another one after spending too much time with that person. So I think it would have been much more interesting to have seen Harley well at the beginning and then gradually descend into madness as she falls for Joker. But no, that was not to be. And don't even get me started on the ending. If you haven't seen the film, skip ahead now as this is a major spoiler. The audacity to make me sit through that whole film just to kill him off at the end is outrageous. It just makes the entire film completely pointless. And I guess now the guy at the end who killed him is going to be the new Joker? I think he was cutting a smile into his face at the end, so I guess that's what that means. I don't even know at this point. Now in terms of ranking, I know all the pedants out there will be saying, well, if nothing was added from the previous portrayal, then surely the rank would still be A tier. And while Joaquin Phoenix is exceptional yet again in the role, I just can't bring myself to give this A tier. And so it's getting D tier. So there we have it, my complete ranking of most of the Joker portrayals. If you've disagreed with anything I've said, and I'm sure there's a lot, leave a comment down below and we'll have a scrap. And with that, we've reached the end of the video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to like the video and subscribe.